First time I saw Alice's work was when I came in for a preview of the students' graduation work at the Royal College of Art, and her work was on a tabletop like this, and I was completely blown away by it. I'm a fashion journalist, and really I'm only in this business to be astonished. And I wrote that what I'd seen from Alice was something you only see in 10,000 blue moons. And then I explained what the work was, and I think on my Instagram I'm followed by a lot of fashion people, students, academics, and it just exploded because once people, obviously the picture of the ballet shoes was incredibly arresting and beautiful, but when people suddenly read through and realised they were made of sweat, those crystals, and the story, the comments, I don't think I've ever had so many comments, and people started reposting it, and so yes, it was one of the highlights of my year. I spend a lot of my life speaking to new designers and to students, and in fact the most crucial thing is to understand who they are, because great work comes from what's made the people. So yes, and so immediately I started probing into Alice's and her background, and all the answers are there. I've seen an awful lot in fashion, and I'm always in it to try to understand what's coming next. In the world now, and especially in fashion, we're very, very conscious of how damaging fashion is to ecology and to people. And to find some people of a very young generation who are thinking differently about what they can contribute to, which is creating fabrics, creating materials out of things which are grown and are literally from waste. So I mean, sweat is a waste. Is something that's just given me so much hope. I mean, it's long-term research, but you feel that there's a new generation coming up who are really thinking differently. I think the thing that's really crucially different about Alice is that she has an aesthetic sense, and she comes from fashion, but she also has a sciencey brain, and that combination is something you don't see every day. We should be seeing it in education. I think education in the future needs to cross-fertilise between disciplines. It's the only way we'll find something new, and that's what makes her such an unusual and fascinating being who can think about something so ordinary and transform it into a wonder. Because as soon as you do start talking about sweat, people are repulsed. They find it socially unacceptable, even the language around it, sweat, perspiration, and all those terms are culturally loaded. But once you get past that barrier, then people can experience this kind of wonder, and that's something else that Alice has spoken about, the wonder, sheer wonder of what goes on in the human body, and that's really something which is very profound. It's very poetic, philosophical, and yes, beautiful to look at. In the past, really literally up until now, fashion has mimicked the body. It's mimicked, well, it has all kinds of complex meanings, emotional, political, social, disruptive, anarchic, classic. I could go on and on. But it's always been made in the same way, mass manufactured in factories. So while something can look radical, can sound radical, it isn't necessarily of a different order. And I think what Alice and the biotech designers are working on is of a whole different order. I'm really interested in revolutions, and this does feel like a revolution. I mean, this fellowship has come at a time which is really, really useful and crucial for Alice's career. The thing is, we don't know what Alice's career will be. It's something that in itself will have to be invented. Being able to spend more time, have the freedom to pursue conversations with doctors, with scientists, with athletes, with whoever she chooses is, I mean, it's a golden opportunity, and what's really important is it's not dictated by a commercial company. So I think the problem is, or the nature of biotech is that it is probably carrying on in science labs all over the world, but not being, it's not in the hands necessarily, unless I don't know, people who have a fashion discipline. And so I think for her not to have to go into a company and work in a lab alongside lots of other people and disappear for the rest of her career, which she could do and earn a lot of money. Who knows, that's maybe in the future that's the way it goes. But I really like to see a young person being able to be able to really think on her own and within the community in Athens about what her work can be. There are multiple different directions she can go in. So that's just, I want to see what comes out at the other end.